is instead of thinking, I have to get better at this thing I don't like, I'm no good at, that's a myth that a lot of people believe. They think they have to get better at some weakness and that they're just going to have to muscle through it. But the reality is they can just delegate or outsource it. And the best thing for them to do is get out of it. Hey folks, Todd here from Construction Leading Edge, and I am here with our SYCB facilitator and coach, Monish Khadye. Probably heard Monish. You've been on the podcast twice, I think. We've done several things, and some of you may have spoken with Monish. Monish, thank you for the calling in from the future. You're in Australia. It's always encouraging to talk to somebody from Australia. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm great. It's 5 a.m. on the following day here, so it's good. Future looks good so far, and it's summer here, so I feel like I'm doing a lot better than you are at the moment.
Probably so. It's mid-February, early February here. We're in the schizophrenic part of winter here in Kentucky, where it could be 15 degrees one day, 60 degrees the next day. You just never know. Tornadoes one day, blizzards a week later. Yeah, it's good times. Good times.
Nice.
All right, so today we're going to be tackling an issue that you and I have seen quite a bit in our conversations with construction business owners that we speak to and our clients in our Systematized Your Construction Business program. We identified this issue, so we're going to do a test. We call this the Visionary test. So let's jump into it. A lot of what we're going to talk about comes from, if you're watching the video, comes from this book, Rocket Fuel, by Gino Wickman and Mark Winters. It's a follow-up book to the book Traction. And a lot of good stuff in there, but we're going to be talking about this because that's what the whole book is about, is differentiating and helping visionaries figure out what they really are, where their role is. So let's jump into it. We'll talk about what visionaries bring to an organization. We'll start going through the test. Like if some of these things apply to you, you're probably a visionary. If these are the things, some of the challenges you're seeing in your organization, you're probably a visionary. And we'll talk about what you can do going forward. And we may have some good news for you. There are some myths and misconceptions that we want to break. We want to break some of those myths, which I think will help you if you're a visionary. So first of all, let's talk about what visionaries bring to an organization. So again, according to this book, Rocket Fuel, the visionaries bring several things. They're incredibly important to an organization. So they are the idea generator. They generate ideas. In many cases, if you're a visionary, you have big ideas, several big ideas every week, maybe even several big ideas every day. They also see the big picture. The visionary, as the name might suggest, sees the big picture. They have a big picture vision of where they want to go, and they can see into the future. They see things that other people may not see coming. They see opportunities, they see challenges, that kind of thing. And according to this book, Rocket Fuel, the visionary also and often has a hunter mentality. I'll just read an excerpt from this. In John F. Denny's book, he calls you, quote, hunters, meaning that you are wired differently than most. You're always in hunting mode. Your type of hunting is for ideas, deals, opportunities, and solutions to big problems. Denny describes you as having, quote, the ability to navigate in the fog, end quote, explaining you know how to keep moving in the right direction when you don't have a compass and there aren't any signposts. He says visionaries hunt. They don't manage. They explore rather than analyze. They build companies with vision, creativity, and tenacity, not with policies and procedures, which we're going to get to that. So if most or all of what you just heard describes you, you are probably a visionary. So let's talk about this. What do those attributes of a visionary look like in a construction business? What do you think, Monish?
Well, you know what, to kick this off, if there's any people watching this or listening to this and they think they might be visionaries, I'll give you a very clear example so you can switch off if you wanted to. Rocket Fuel, I read chapter 1 and I got what I needed out of it and I moved on. I'm the type of guy that doesn't finish reading books. So if you're that person, then you're pretty much a visionary. So I'll kick you off with that. But, in terms of a construction business, as a visionary, when I started my business, I knew what I wanted the business to look like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And, I've done like mind maps, drawing out all these different types of services and products that we provide and where I'd like to get to, right? I know I want to get to here, and I know that I can network, I can seek opportunities, I can make things happen. I just can't do them on a day-to-day basis, I suppose. But I think the best way to put it is every time you light a fire, let's say, it comes from a spark from a lighter, and you're that spark as a visionary, right? You're not the entire fire itself, but you need the spark to kick it off. And that's probably what most visionaries brings to the table. Everyone that sort of starts a construction business from scratch, let's say, and even people that are second generation or third generation builders, most likely visionaries if you're the type that's not just seeing the business how it is today, but how you'd like it to be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the track. And you're just a positive person that, wants to get everyone to jump on board. And like I said, great at networking. So you're able to make new connections with whether it's architects, whether it's new clients, and could be a positive side, could be a downside. You tend to say yes to every opportunity that comes your way and then letting your team look after it basically. But yeah, you need to have a visionary to actually turn the business into a specific direction that you want to go in. And sometimes it can zigzag, but it's going in a direction basically instead of staying stagnant.
Yep. Good stuff. So according to Rocket Fuel, here's what you do if you are the visionary. So listen up. If you're a visionary, you've probably already lost interest by now. Maybe you're distracted. You've already had 4 or 5 groundbreaking ideas since we started this, but listen up. This is the first test. So your 9 symptoms, if you're a visionary. Number 1, you are the entrepreneurial spark plug. You're the one that's the catalyst for making stuff happen. Number 2, you are the inspirer. You inspire people to action. Number 3, you're the passion provider. You have the passion, the energy. Number 4, you're a developer of new ideas, big ideas, and breakthroughs. And you may have 1 big idea a day, 10 big ideas a week. If you could have things just your way, you would spend all your time just coming up with big ideas, right? Let's talk about this one. According to Rocket Fuel, you're a big problem solver. So what do you think about that, Manish? Does that resonate with you? Or what does it mean that visionaries are big problem solvers?
Well, let's take the last 2-3 years, for example, post-COVID, with everything that's happened in the market and everything that may or may not happen with whatever the media is going on about the next year or so. I think not just myself, but most visionaries will have a tendency to seek opportunities out of that. We're not sitting here going, oh, the world's falling apart, I got to give up and whatever. It's more about, all right, so this is happening. How can we make the most of it? And you tend to, switch your strategies or whatever the need may be to not just survive, but actually succeed. That's what the drive is always towards. And so for any construction business, it's a massive asset having a visionary. And I'll say this, having a visionary specifically in the visionary role, not doing something else, right? Having the freedom to be a visionary is quite important. And that allows the rest of the team who may be anxious or worried about what the future may bring to rely on this person to supply that spark, to supply that energy and go, all right, we're just going to do what this guy says, because so far what he's said the last few years has worked out in the long run. And we just go, yep, and figure out how to make that dream a reality.
Yeah, I think that's very important. A visionary in the right role with the right support is very powerful. We'll talk about what some of the symptoms of a visionary who's not in the right role might look like in just a few minutes. So big problem solvers, they attack big problems. Number 6 is the visionary is the engager and maintainer of big external relationships, big relationships with partners, trade partners, referral partners, key customers. They're big on relationships. Connected to that, they are also often the closer of big deals. If there's a big deal that needs to be pushed across the finish line, the visionary is the one that does that. They are also the learner, researcher, and discoverer. They love to learn things, they love to research new ideas, and love to discover new ideas, new technologies, new solutions, new software, that kind of thing. And they are also the creator of the company vision and the champion of that company vision. So if any of that sounds familiar, you might just be a visionary. Now, one of the main ways we find out we're talking to visionaries is by some of the challenges they face, some of the symptoms that are going on in their organization, things that could be going differently, might not be going well. So here's what I want you to think about. If you're a visionary, let's talk about the top 10 symptoms that you could be dealing with. And then we'll just take one at a time, discuss these, maybe share a couple of examples. The first one is inconsistency. So inconsistency is one of the visionary's top 10 challenges. What does that inconsistency look like, Monish?
Well, for me, for example, it's not so much to do with the vision or the overall vision as such. It's more on the day-to-day things, because I've got a tendency of, and I'd say a lot of visionaries probably have some sort of ADD, right? So you can't just focus on the one task all day. I certainly can't. And if I try to do that, I bounce out to like 5 or 6 different things. So the inconsistency comes from if I'm being relied on to do certain things consistently, then it's just not going to happen. If I'm managing day-to-day details of a project as a PM and I'm supposed to do certain things consistently, they're probably not going to happen. And then I'm going to feel guilty or frustrated. So I'd rather not do them, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm not a great maintainer of things. I love to create, good at building things, but if you need somebody to like turn the crank on something and do it every day, every week, every month, I'm going to lose interest. I'm going to get bored, quite frankly. So this next one is interesting. Whiplash. So I'll read from Rocket Fuel. Another trait we see often is what we refer to as organizational whiplash. In this case, the organization is so tuned into the visionary and your ideas that whenever you turn your head to the right to pursue a new idea, it forces the entire organization to the right. Then, following your natural visionary instincts, you turn your head in the other direction toward another idea and whip. The organization tries to snap to the new direction, but it can't keep up with the pace of the head turns. Eventually, they lose all sense of where they are headed. We can't really hold the visionary at fault for this one. You likely aren't even aware that it's happening until the damage has been done. This leads to another dynamic that ails many organizations, a lack of consistency. And this one is interesting because I found a study several years ago about why successful contractors fail, why large successful contractors fail. And one of the common themes was too much change. And it came from the top. Too much, trying to incorporate too much change, constantly changing direction, constantly rolling out new initiatives. Too much change can not only frustrate an organization, but can actually cause it to self-destruct. What have you seen in the way of organizational whiplash? What does this look like for you?
Well, I'd like to call it the shiny object syndrome, right? Because every time, like you were saying, there's tons of new ideas that bounce in. Every time I see an opportunity which could turn into an idea in my head, I try and steer, or used to try and steer, the business towards that. So we specialize in residential renovations, design and build renovations here. But I have at times steered to doing commercial and then steered to doing new homes and things like that, which is fine. Like as an idea, it works, but the business isn't set up to be the best at delivering them. So all of a sudden my team has to do things in a certain way that they're not used to, or not just that they're not used to, but not the way that I've got them used to, I should say. So I'm getting them out of the system that I've built to pursue my stupid idea that I've had at the time, instead of just sticking with the program and, leaving it alone. So the tendency to sabotage the organization simply because I've had a new idea and now let's go in a different direction.
Yeah. And probably a lot of you who are listening may be suffering from a lot of shiny object syndrome because maybe you just went to the International Builder Show, right? And you saw all these new technologies. Maybe you sat through some educational sessions and you came back with 37 pages of notes. And now you're just trying to figure out, how do I incorporate all these new ideas into my business? And the answer is you're probably not going to do it. And if you try, you won't actually get anywhere because another new idea is going to come along before too much longer. And I struggled with this. I was a chronic sufferer of shiny object syndrome. Like, ooh, there's a shiny object. Let's go chase that. And then get about halfway down that path. And, oh, there's another shiny object. Let's go try that. Or, oh, there's a business book. I read this business book and I should do this. And then I would read another business book and have the next great idea. And there's another shiny object. A lot of what you need, maybe the best thing for you to do if you suffer from shiny object syndrome, is go on an information diet. Just don't consume information. I call it information bulimia. We just consume information and we listen to podcasts and we read books and we go to seminars and then we try to do something with it. But we just can't. We don't get any value out of it. We just vomit this information back up and it just doesn't do any good. No, it's sometimes the best thing to do is just stop consuming information. Stop reading business books. I mean, obviously you want to listen to this podcast regularly. You definitely want to go deep on this podcast, but probably want to consider dialing back some of the other podcasts. What were you going to say, Monish?
Well, I was going to say you're partially to blame for my shiny object syndrome, because probably the biggest case of it that I had was when I came to the Advanced Live meetup last year in Kentucky. And, sitting in that room with 15 other business owners with tons of ideas themselves, I left that super excited. And as we always do, it's like, yep, I've got all these ideas and they need to be executed right now. There's never a realistic timeline to execute them, and then you need someone like my wife to pull me back and go, yeah, in due time, not just yet. Like we're on a path already. So yeah, I will definitely blame you for that one, Todd. But it's an exciting time that going to conferences and things. So.
That is one of the downsides of a conference is you get so many ideas, and you need to execute 100% of them right now. Just shut everything down and implement all these good ideas. But unfortunately, it just doesn't go that way. So symptom number 3, which probably ties into organizational whiplash, is the lack of clear direction. Or maybe it's the changing of direction. I worked for a guy several years ago, and one Monday morning, he was a classic visionary and exhibited a lot of these symptoms. And one Monday morning, called a mandatory meeting, had 3 or 4 of us on the leadership team in, and he laid out this vision. We need to go in this completely different direction. We need to go build homes for retired people of retirement age. And this was a utility company. Okay. We didn't build houses. And so we literally spent 5 hours in this meeting, and he passionately laid out this vision and how it came to him and what we needed to do. And then never heard another syllable about that idea again. And we were all like, okay, what do we do now? What do we do about this part of the business that's actually paying the bills? There was none of that, and never heard another word about it again. So, what about you? What do you think this lack of clear direction can look like?
I have a tendency of solving problems by speaking them out loud with my team, right? And so if we do one of these meetings, I will just go on a ramble, and I'll switch direction like 10 different times in the span of 10 minutes, sort of thing. And people, my team will probably be hesitant to question, I guess, just by feeling intimidated or, not want to stop the train of thought. But after, I'm like, there's no way that they could have kept up with how I was thinking, because I definitely wasn't communicating that well to begin with. So the lack of clear direction could be, the end of that meeting is like, what did he just say? Like, what are we going to go and do? And that used to tend to happen quite often until I stepped away a bit more. But I now realize that I need to pick a direction, figure it out myself, and potentially with a coach more specifically, so I can actually talk it out loud, and then present it to my team in a way that suits them. And yeah, the most important thing is to communicate whatever my vision is well, because it doesn't matter how good or bad my vision is if it's not communicated well to my team, because it won't be executed.
That's a really good point. I think a lot of visionaries are guilty of getting excited about their vision, and then the first time they hear their vision out loud is them trying to explain it to their team. And they're processing externally, and that's great, except every Monday morning meeting, there's a new big vision. And the team is like, hey, we're still like 12% complete on last week's vision. And then we thought 2 weeks ago vision was where we were headed, but like, what do we do? And then eventually it becomes, it's just the vision of the week, vision du jour, and we're not going to do anything with it. So might as well just mentally check out, nod, yeah, and then just next week it'll be another one. So don't worry about it. Yeah.
And most people's spouses will probably attest to that in their personal lives as well. Like Michelle will tell you, I go through so many phases. I've got new hobbies and new ideas every single day. And she's learnt to just take a back seat and go, yep, and just let it play out until I'm on to the next one.
Yeah. Okay, symptom number 4 of the Visionaries' top 10 challenges is the reluctance to let go. The reluctance to let go. How do you see this showing up? Maybe in some of the clients you've worked with, maybe in your own experience. What do you think?
I guess it comes from a good place. It comes from the passion, right? You know what you want the end result to look like. You're just not sure how to exactly communicate it to someone else so that they can execute it. And so the reluctance to let go is like, no, it might just be better that I do this because I can get it to where it needs to get to. Or if someone's executing it, but they may not be executing it the way you had envisioned it. It doesn't matter because, there's plenty of different ways to skin a cat in a way. But the reluctance to be like, no, this isn't how I'd pictured it, so I may as well just do it myself. Which doesn't quite work in the long run because there's only so much time in the day. There's only so much you can do. And if you try and do everything, you're just simply not going to meet all your goals.
Yeah, definitely. Which probably contributes to number 5. Challenge number 5 is underdeveloped leaders and managers. This is when typically the visionary who is reluctant to let go, not really clear on articulating things, not good at delegating, basically. So they have underdeveloped leaders and managers. They're just focused on their vision, what they want to do. And then we'll talk about number 6, which is a very interesting challenge. But why do you think the visionary is often plagued by creating underdeveloped leaders and managers? What do you think?
Well, it's twofold. So one side of it is that you feel like no one else is going to care about the business or the vision as much as you will, right? So you tend to micromanage because And the problem there is because you haven't, to begin with, communicated that vision that well. You haven't set that expectation that clearly. So there's always like this gray area that you're in the middle of. And the other side of it is, being the personality type that we are, we probably want to be the superstars, right? Like we probably want to take all the credit and things like that. And I can attest to that. We're at a point in my business where it's quite autonomous for me. And at the end of a project, my team gets all the credit, which is great. It's fantastic. Like it's to me, I've built a successful business, but that career satisfaction is just not there anymore because I'm not the one delivering these things, right? So I can see now going back why I didn't give others the opportunity to step up and lead, because I just wanted to be the leader. It was a very selfish thing to do, to be completely honest. So I think that's where it comes from.
Yeah. Okay. Number 6. So I've heard it said, and I say this a lot, that self-awareness is like hugging a porcupine. The closer you get, the more uncomfortable it becomes. So some of you might be a little uncomfortable at this point. You might be thinking, yeah, that's me. I am constantly changing directions. Everybody on my team has neck braces on because of the organizational whiplash. I'm guilty of laying out grand plans every week. This one was probably going to sting a little bit too. This is the number 6 challenge of Visionaries, the top 10 list, is a reference to the book Good to Great. If you haven't read this book, if you're listening, highly recommend it. Good to Great by Jim Collins. And I'll just read this excerpt from Rocket Fuel. Be prepared to hug that porcupine of self-awareness. In Good to Great, Jim Collins describes one common leadership behavior pattern as, quote, a genius with 1,000 helpers, end quote. Many visionaries suffer from this problem. You are very bright and likely made it this far largely on your own capabilities, expanding the company from startup to where you are today on your own brute strength. However, what got you here won't get you to the next level. You haven't really needed to leverage the capabilities of others, so it isn't surprising that you've spent little time thinking about how to develop such resources. It is exceedingly difficult for you to attract the type of leadership that could eventually run the day-to-day without you. As an entrepreneur, you don't like being told what to do. Your gift is actually telling other people what to do, so you naturally order your young, high-potentialed, talented leaders around and end up running them off instead of developing them. You may even see your company as a platform from which you can display your brilliance to the world. You are a rock star, and this is your stage. Your company is your identity. This view leaves little space for talent to develop around you. Yeah. The genius with 1,000 helpers.
Yeah. And I think that's the fact that, or I guess the perception that the company is our identity. That is very, very relatable. And it's very important to separate the two. Because if I stick with that the company is my identity, the genius with 1,000 helpers, the best example I can give you is, I'm sure other visionaries think of it this way as well. I've at plenty times thought to myself, man, I wish I could just clone myself. I wish I could just make 10 copies of myself, and then I'd have the team that I need to get to where I want to get to. Well, that's incorrect. If I made 10 copies of myself, all of a sudden I'd have 9 competitors in the industry, right? There'd be 9 other people that start businesses, and we'd clash heads all the time. It definitely won't work because I am not the right personality for every single other job in the business. And every single other major function or role in the business needs someone who's a completely different personality to me, completely different set of skills, and how they go about their business in order for that function to be successful. And when you have then a team full of the right individuals, you will succeed. And I can still be the captain of the ship if that's what we want to call it. But really, the best way for me to do that is by getting out of the way of the rest of the team. giving them a sense of direction and saying, all right, off you go. Let's see how you guys perform with your individual strengths that you're bringing in. And a good way to explain that is by looking at, professional sports teams, like any sort of team sport. Not everyone has the exact same set of skills. Not everyone is going to be a superstar. It's just not possible. Like if you had the Chicago Bulls with 5 Michael Jordans, you'd have 5 people that hate each other. It wouldn't work. And it's really important for the other people to also succeed and do their jobs well, etc., to keep going forward.
Yeah. And what I hear from folks who fall into this category of a genius with 1,000 helpers is if you have an organizational chart, if you have a visual depiction of your organizational chart, it would probably look like one of 3 things. One, it would be everybody in your company reporting to you. Option 2 is it's like a wagon wheel and you are the hub in the middle and everything goes through you. Every question goes through you, every problem comes to you, every decision comes to you. Or option 3 is it looks like this pile of spaghetti, this 3-dimensional pile of spaghetti, and you're in the middle of it somewhere. And everything's connected and it's just a gigantic mess. So that's what the genius with 1,000 helpers looks like. And I think a lot of that goes back to the mindset. It's thinking, well, it's my vision, it's my company, and these people are just here to help me achieve my vision and do what I want to do. A lot of it goes back to that belief. And if that's your belief, then that's probably what you're going to get. And the root cause of some of your problems could go back to that belief pattern that these people, if you believe these people are just there to help you and do what you tell them, that's the way you're going to treat them, and that's what you're going to get. Number 7, this one was a little interesting to me. The number 7 challenge of visionaries is ego and feelings of value being dependent on being needed by others. So this is the visionary often gets their sense of value from other people being dependent on them. What do you think about that?
I can definitely relate. Like coming back to when we came to the US last year to the live event, Michelle, myself, and our son Max, we took a couple of weeks off after that and traveled around New York, and then came back here. And during that time away, I spent maybe 2 hours a week on the business, and that was weekly team meetings with my staff and anything that they needed specifically from me, which was pretty disappointing because there wasn't a lot that they needed from me. And what made matters worse is when I came back, I had this false perception that, maybe things have gone wrong. I just haven't been made aware of them. And so when I came back home, I called our staff, I called our subcontractors, and I called our clients. And I went and saw our clients from our live projects just to be like, hey, I was away for the last 3 weeks. Just want to make sure that you don't feel that I abandoned you. I'm still here. Let's talk about what went wrong. Let's talk about how to fix it. And no one really had anything negative, and especially this one particular client who we've worked for the last 3 years. We've done repetitive stages. I sent her a text that I'm coming over, and I went over, and we had a chat about my time away on holiday. And then she was like, so what's on your agenda? What do you want to talk about? And I said, well, nothing really. I just wanted to, make sure everything was running smoothly and if you had any issues. And she literally said to me, she's like, yeah, you don't need to really be involved at all. Things are fine without you. Your team's doing really well without you. And you know what? That should have been a compliment, but I took that as a hit to my ego because I felt I wasn't needed. That actually hurt. And I came back to the office and I said to Michelle, like, this sucks because we've done so well that I'm no longer needed. And, it's definitely the ego thing because I should be looking at it from the right perspective. That is, this is fantastic. I've created an autonomous business. My team is being successful. My clients are taken care of. Like it shouldn't have been, hey, we didn't miss you at all and it's fine. Like that's how I took it, but it's just something you got to get used to. That's the downside of success, I suppose.
Yeah. And I could see how this could, this need for validation can cause some self-sabotage, right? Like you can imagine if you need to be validated by your clients, if you need to be the hero, then you could undermine your own people just to get some validation from your clients. You could go create this problem just to step in and solve it, and in the process undermine your people, and all because you need to be validated by others. Yeah.
And that's a good example, because you could see yourself stepping in to solve a crisis or a problem when you know you don't really need to, that your team can handle it and they can come to you. Your team can come to you if they need support, but you tend to step in just to make yourself look like the guy with the cape and that I did this, not my team. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Wait a minute. What do you mean things seem to be not only going as well as when I was running projects, it seems like they're going better. And we're making more money without me. That hurts a little bit. And that is crazy, isn't it? Like you work so hard to create an autonomous business, but then your feelings are hurt because the customers are happy, just as happy, maybe even happier dealing with somebody else. But that is one of the challenges of the visionary.
And like you said, I think it's probably important to point out at this point that the business is more profitable. It's running a lot smoother. There's less issues because I'm not stepping in and sabotaging. I'm not stepping in and changing direction. I'm not stepping in and trying to say, all right, this isn't working. Let's do things differently. I'm letting my team resolve whatever's going on because they're best placed to do that. And it definitely hurts because you realize that actually the key for the company to be successful is for you to get out of its way. And that's the separation of your personal identity from the company's identity. It's important. It needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. So this next one hits home a lot with the work we do. So symptom number 8 that you could be a visionary is the resistance to follow standardized processes. I see this all the time. Visionaries, they want to get somewhere. They want to have a process, but they do not want to be shackled or bothered or slowed down by a process. They want to move and shake. They're like, I'm a free range pony. You can't hold me down. I'm a peacock. You got to let me fly. And they bypass and sidestep, and they're a little too agile for standardized processes. What sort of problems does that create? What do you think?
Well, it's the approach to this is usually do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
Right. So we've gone through, we've systematized my business and created all these processes, blah, blah, but I'm not going to follow them. Not that I don't want to. It's just, I don't think I'm physically capable of doing that. Right. So if I stick to trying to do things myself within them, I'm probably not going to do them. And it's better off. It's not so much of natural resistance. It's just, I just don't see that as a priority. I'd rather be free to be creative instead of sticking with a standardized process. And so it's important that I delegate that to someone else that loves sticking to standardized processes and can actually succeed in that environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 9, I see this all the time. The visionary is easily bored. The visionary is easily bored. How does this show up?
Well, you've seen this with me when like a year ago, whenever that was, when my business was getting streamlined, it was getting smoother, and I was just going, all right, let's do developments, let's do this, let's do that, and effectively trying to sabotage the business because that split had happened, that it wasn't my identity anymore. The business was successful in its own right with its own team, and the reason I'm bored is because and you'll see this with most visionaries, I tended to do 60-hour work weeks and kept myself busy. Just because the business is now running smoothly doesn't mean that I'm going to now all of a sudden watch more TV and kick up my feet and relax. And it's just not who I am, right? So I have a tendency to get bored and want to do something new, something different, and keep going on. And that's when you were just like, calm down, stop trying to come up with all these different ideas, and step in and help out with some coaching things, which I did. But the boredom thing, again, it's important to recognize that and separate myself from the business, because I can't simply use the business to cure my boredom, because again, that's me sabotaging. It's not healthy for the business for me to use it in that sense. So if I'm bored, I need to go find new hobbies and stop trying to get, that need for validation, that dopamine hit out of the business. Just leave it alone and let it do its thing.
I think that's a really important point. It's a lot of these symptoms we've talked about, in a word, can be traced back to selfishness, right? I need to get validation. I need this business to be a creative outlet. I need it to do something for me. It's all about me as the visionary, and that is probably the root cause of a lot of these issues. And I've certainly seen that in a few cases. Yeah.
I just want to say at that point that someone has to be like that. Like, I'm not trying to say, like, we're not bad people. There are certain bad elements and aspects, or let's say negative elements and aspects, which after a certain point, it's the point of diminishing returns sort of thing. But up to that point, up to that inception phase of a business, you need to be that person. Because if you're not that person, you're not going to make it past the first 2 years of the business. You have to be that guy or girl that is going to be like, all right, this is my vision and I'm going to make it happen no matter what. I'm going to drive. But like you said, what gets you from A to B will not get you from B to C. It's think of it as the rocket. You launch and then you've got to let go of that fuel tank or whatever it is to then let the satellite go through. Like, you can't hang on to that. You've got to drop that off. And so it's not just all criticism. Like, it's a good thing you are the person you are, but once something's created, let go of it and let it succeed.
Yeah. Yep. It's exactly what Jim Collins said. You're very bright. You likely made it this far largely on your own capabilities, expanding the company from startup to where you are today. However, what got you here won't get you to the next level. So you have to make that transition. Okay, the last symptom is pretty straightforward. No patience for details. No patience for details. The visionary they just don't want to be bothered by the details. They want to stay at the 30,000 foot level. Yeah. So let me just recap these top 10 symptoms. You're a visionary. Some of the challenges you could be dealing with: inconsistency, organizational whiplash. And I would encourage you to count on this, how many of these 10 would show up if someone audited your business. Inconsistency, organizational whiplash, lack of clear direction, a reluctance to let go of things, underdeveloped leaders and managers, the genius with 1,000 helpers, feeling dependent and getting your value by being needed by others, resistance to standardized processes, easily bored, no patience for details. So rate yourself there, see how you're doing. Next, let's talk about some misconceptions and myths about being a visionary. So you made an interesting statement when we talked about doing this podcast. You said you misdiagnosed yourself. Talk about that a little bit, and then tell us about some of the myths and misconceptions about being a visionary.
Well, like I said, I didn't, bother reading more than that first chapter of the book. But even before that, with Traction, I haven't finished Traction. Just like Good to Great, I haven't finished Good to Great. I don't finish things. But I hadn't identified myself as a visionary, because to me, that seemed something like Elon Musk, right? It seemed something way too far removed from who I am as a person, because I've got a construction business, just like so many other people. It's this, we're just doing what everyone else is doing, but trying to do it slightly better. I didn't really see myself as, I'm not a tech entrepreneur that's come up with a brilliant new idea to do things. I just figured I'm just doing what everyone else is doing. So to me, and because throughout my career, I've been the guy that gets things done, the problem solver or whatever. I saw myself more as the integrator or the implementer, not so much as the visionary. And because I didn't quite see that, I didn't quite realize that's who I am or that's what my personality is, I kept being still involved in day-to-day tasks, in things that I really shouldn't have. And it didn't quite become clear to me, excuse me, how bad I was at those things until I got rid of them. Estimating is probably a huge one out of that. So when I estimate, the tendency was that this is overpriced. I'm not going to win the job. There was a lot of fear of failure and rejection. And most often when we submitted the prices, people didn't even really ask me to reduce the price or whatever. It was, I don't know where this came from, but it was just an internal thing. So the dialogue while I was estimating was just being, I'd procrastinate a lot on it. I'd try and reduce the prices, and we'd end up winning jobs that were underpriced, basically, not as profitable, and the team would suffer on the other end. Once I let go of it and passed this on to our pre-construction manager, Rachel, everything she touched, we won, right? Every single thing. But not only that, it was estimated the way it should have been. And my job in that was that Rachel and Andrew, our construction manager, would put this bid together, present it to me, and as I'd warned them I'd try and reduce the margin on it, and they'd say no, because we're going in at this margin because this is what the business needs. We understand that you want to win the project. Let's just go in at this and let the client come back and say you need to be cheaper. And we do that, and most often the clients wouldn't do that. And, we're not setting a margin that's out of the norm for our industry. We are quite competitive, and more importantly, we're providing a really good service compared to other builders. So it was definitely not worth reducing that any further. But all these jobs that we've done now, because they've been sold as profitable jobs, we've been able to deliver the quality of service that needs to be delivered as a project. Instead of when I used to sell these jobs underpriced and all of a sudden going, oh, we can't actually spend that much time on it. You guys need to do this quicker, which then had that ripple effect of my team being frustrated, and and it was all I'm trying to get these guys to go quicker and this and that and blah blah, but that's not resulting in the best product at the end of the day either. Mm-hmm. So it was something that I just had to pull out of, because instead of me saying I need to get better at estimating or this or that, I literally just need to delegate that and move out of it. Same with day-to-day project management. Like things just can't happen at my pace. It's unrealistic, and I'm better off being in that visionary box than that. So I had to go through like a 18-month period to realize this through trial and error, which sucked. But knowing those things now and seeing them firsthand, I can vouch for them when I'm speaking to our clients and say, look, it's real. I've seen the results, and I've seen the results in our bottom line.
So sounds like the first myth is, instead of thinking, I have to get better at this thing I don't like, I'm no good at, that's a myth that a lot of people believe. They think they have to get better at some weakness and that they're just going to have to muscle through it. But the reality is they can just delegate it or outsource it. And the best thing for them to do is get out of it. What else? What are some other misconceptions that visionaries are stuck in?
I think the other thing was we're always looking for growth. And we know that the business in its current form isn't quite ready and it needs to be set up and go forth. And most of us know that, through reading these books and podcasts and stuff, that the systems and processes need to be set up. And it's always on our to-do list, always. And it's never going to happen, being completely honest, because we're just natural procrastinators. It's not in us to sit at a desk for 8 hours a day and write out a Word document or, figure out automation and build a trend and this is how we're going to do it. Like, we'll probably make a start at it, but we're never going to finish it. And we're never going to get it perfect enough for us to implement it to the business. And so the other myth is that, yeah, it's my business, so I need to create all those things. I think that's incorrect, as I found out. I think it's better that we present the vision very clearly and we get the team to bring in their input and say, all right, if we want to get there, in my role, I need to do this way. I need to do this way. And then you give them the freedom to actually go on and create these processes, implement them, and then come back to you with feedback. And, you know, when a team member comes to you and says, hey, I'll put this together, I've been using this for a few weeks, but I need to change a couple of things on this because it's not working. That's when you go, yes, let's do it. You don't go, no, let's do it my way because I think it'll work better. You don't do that. That will be the natural reaction, but try and not do that. Just trust your team and let them go through and succeed or fail to find out what works or doesn't in their role, because you're not the one doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think you put it really well. You may think you have to create all these processes and all the structure, but you're wrong because you'll never do it. And even if you do get it close, it will never be perfect enough and it will just never happen. And secondly, it will work so much better if you just stick to the visionary role, go plant a flag out in the future and say, this is the vision, this is where we're headed. Let's all get there. Let your team harness the power of your team and leverage your team to create the process, implement the process, improve the process, and just stay out of it. Yeah, absolutely. What else? Any other myths that we need to bust out there that visionaries are stuck in?
I think it's probably at this point, if you're realizing you're a visionary and you know you've got your vision, your goals. Like most of us will have over-ambitious goals, and we're probably overachievers as well to begin with. Like, you're already successful at the point that you're at. But as we were saying, separating the business from ourselves and then going further to create new businesses or whatever, I feel like a lot of visionaries think that just because they have the vision, they also know how to execute all that high-level strategy in the long term as well. But as I've found out through you, like when I signed up as a client back then, was that being coached was a massive advantage. Having someone there who was an external party sort of looking in and help me critique what I'm doing and what I should be doing, what I could be doing better, helped substantially. So just because I'm a visionary doesn't mean everything has to be done my way and only my way. There's so much benefit in being coached. And again, you know, if you look at professional athletes, the guys that are the most successful are the most coachable athletes. They will listen to their coach, they'll take criticism, and they'll then follow through. So I think just because you're a visionary doesn't mean everything has to be done on your own. I don't think that's a good approach. I think if you realize you're a visionary, it's even better to get a coach involved, because a coach will tell you when you're sabotaging yourself, like you did for me. And he'll tell you or she'll tell you that, hey, you're taking your personal ego and stuff and you're putting it into the business. Stop doing that. Your business is working well. Let's talk about that. That's working well. Now, what else can you do, right? What other direction do you personally want to go in? Let's separate that from the business.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so let's talk about what a visionary should be doing in their business. Break that down for us. What do you think?
First of all, get out of the way. So don't try and take everything on. Don't try and micromanage. Delegate the results. So you're not just delegating day-to-day tasks. Like I said, you're setting a very clear vision and you're delegating the results. Don't try and figure out how someone else or what someone else needs to do to get to where you want them to get to. You just show them where you want them to get to, and you ask them to come up with a way or a solution on how to get there. And then you let them try it out, because you're probably going to get substantially better results doing it that way instead of trying to force your methods on everyone else, because they just simply won't work for everyone else. Stay out of the day-to-day details. is another one. Like I even hate filling out forms, like simple forms. And I again, something I procrastinate on. Things that are important that need to be done, I just won't do it. And things like that, like if you're staying in day-to-day details, which could be potentially quite bad for a live project or a live bid, don't do that, because you're going to procrastinate on it, and it's never going to be 100% right for yourself. So delegate it to someone else that can get it to 80, 70, even 60% of what you will, because that's still better than zero, right? It's still out there. And especially when, let's say, you're systematizing the business, like what we're doing in the program. We're seeing this with our clients, and you saw it with me as well, that the first 2-3 weeks are important in terms of setting that vision. But then we do the nail the handoff session, or the client does the nail the handoff session with their team internally. And that's when they delegate the results to the team. And all of a sudden now the team's stepping in. And you can see just the demeanor of all these guys who in week 1 were just so frustrated, disgruntled, like no one's doing things the way I want to do things, blah, blah, blah. To like week 5, week 6, they're just going, oh, things are going, like we're seeing results so much better and so much quicker, because all of a sudden there's not just one person moving towards those results, it's the entire team. And the biggest feedback we get from a lot of these guys is when they did the nail the handoff session with their team, is that they were surprised at how many good ideas the team had, and that they never even bothered to ask the team to come up with ideas. And they were just like, I saw a completely different side to my team that I've never seen before. I just thought these guys are just doing things as I'm telling them to do, but they've all got brilliant ideas of their own. And that's when the tables turn. That's when they go, all right, I'm comfortable now to pass the baton on and move on to other things. And that's that's the point when you realize that we're from A to B now. That's B. Now to go to B to C, all I have to do is support my team. And supporting doesn't mean micromanaging. Supporting means being there to answer questions when and if they arise, and providing the tools and the resources and the means for the team to be successful, and just getting out of the way.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting to watch the progression. We've taken a lot of people through this process, and leading up to the nail the handoff session, they're like, I don't know. Are they going to make fun of it? Are they going to be annoyed? Are they going to be frustrated? How am I going to get them to engage? And then on the group call after this, people have their session, they're like, wow, that was amazing. I thought they were going to hate it, but they were excited. And yeah, all these great ideas came out. Like, and some of them are like, where's this been for years? Where's all this creativity been for years? Well, it's been there the whole time. And just a few simple adjustments and doing it in the right way. It's amazing what it unlocks. Yeah. And then the other thing that's interesting is we've seen several people who are the business owner, and they'll join the program, and then they'll say, we'll have a talk with them, and then they'll ask, hey, this person is I'm going to set them up as my CEO or my COO. Can they participate? And the answer is absolutely. And we would actually encourage that. So we have a lot of people who have signed up as the business owner and then delegated this process to their CEO or to their COO. And that's like the ultimate level of delegation. And it has worked incredibly well.
Yeah. And I'll just comment on, there's usually, with that nail the handoff session, there's usually a lot of concern regarding engagement, that these guys are worried that your team's going to turn up and they won't be vocal enough. And I'll tell you the root cause of that. The root cause of that is because you've never given them the opportunity to be vocal. You've always been that guy that will just talk for 10, 15 minutes straight, and people are just sitting there and nodding. And that's what you're used to. The way I can relate to that is like, anytime I'm doing that, I feel necessary to talk even more because I feel I'm not getting my point across because people aren't responding. Yeah. But all that is that there's no gap, right? There's no, all right, this is what I think. What do you think now? There's none of that happening, and it's never happened before. Whereas the way this session works is this isn't about me, it's about you guys. Let's talk about how to make your jobs easier. And surprise, surprise, there's so many ideas that come out of it.
Yeah, instead of monologuing like an evil superhero where you're just telling about unraveling all the mysteries of your grand plan, maybe ask some questions and involve some folks. Let's talk about this for a minute. What can a visionary do to create an environment for success? I mean, there are certainly some environments that would not set them up for success, like isolation is probably not good. Separation from their team is not good. A few things that would create an environment for failure for a visionary, especially like saying you have to go create all these systems and lock yourself in a room for 3 days and hopefully come out with a stack of 3-ring binders. So let's talk about what are a few things that a visionary can do to create an environment for success. What do you think?
I think, just coming back to the program itself, like I said, the first couple of weeks, we really try and hone into that vision, getting that vision down on paper. And part of that is, I guess, a big part of that is setting up an accountability chart for the business and looking at how there's major functions in the business and what what sort of roles they're responsible for as well. Not looking at the people that form part of it, but looking at 2 years ahead, what do I want the business to look like? And what does the business need? And then once you've got that, running it through with your team and going, all right, this is where we want to get to. How can we get there together? And there's always that misconception that no one else is going to care about my vision and this and that as much as me. It's completely false, because everyone else wants to be successful in their own right. And it's about aligning their goals, their personal reasons to be successful with the business. And the accountability chart is the best way to do that. Because if someone wants to progress up in their career, they can see that. They can see that you've got a vision. They can actually see your vision on paper, that you've got that for the next 2 years. And they can see that if I do this, this, and this, I can be doing that function. And in order for me to be successful at that function, I have to make sure that they've got the tools and resources they need at hand, right? A big part of that is letting these people come up with the solutions themselves and just reviewing them. You kind of take the supportive role as a mentor. You're no longer doing that stuff yourself. So if you want to have a team with 5 project managers, let's say, you have to be extremely comfortable with the fact that they're going to be 5 project managers that do not manage a project the way I will or the way I used to, because that's what the business needs. You know what? Because if the project needs to be managed the way I would, it's just always going to be me doing that. My team will always consist of 1 project manager, and that will be me. So it's important to give other people the room to grow and succeed.
Good
and
advice.
just keeping a positive mindset. Like, we last year in April or May determined, I got the team to do their disc profile, and I've done one about 10 years ago, and I'm a very strong D, which is a very assertive, aggressive sort of person. Not aggressive in a bad way. Well, I didn't think so anyway. But my team's all over the
That's what we tell ourselves anyway, right?
Yeah. And it's the disc profile showed how to communicate with their certain personality type and how they communicate with other personality types. But it also showed how other personality types affect them or hold them back. And the moral of the story was, I've got the worst personality type to be communicating with all the time. So the best thing I could do there was just remove myself from the equation. And I said, all right, I am no longer going to rock up to site and do site checks and stuff. I'm just going to rely on you guys to do your daily logs, to do your crew planners, blah, blah, blah. And I said, if you need me, you call me, right? It's not going to be me calling you and saying what's going on, things like that. I'm going to get out of your hair. And I made a very clear, simple solution was, if you guys have a problem, I'd like you to spend 10 minutes thinking about potential solutions. Call me with the solutions, run me through the pros and cons of each, and I'll help you determine which one's the best. But I'm not going to solve your problems for you. And that took a bit getting used to, because, when you get that phone call, the first thing you want to do is just jump in with a solution, because you've thought of it like that and you're like, yep, this is it. Let's go do this. You got to give people the time to think it through, because as that's happened, guess what? My phone doesn't ring as often, because people now know that I believe that they're capable and I can leave them alone. They've got the freedom now, and it's not like I'm breathing down their neck going, what have you done today? Where have you stuffed up? What mistakes have you made? So it's important to do that.
Yeah. So let's talk about what does it look like once a visionary really embraces their strengths, stops trying to believe these myths and misconceptions, and really steps into their role as a visionary and takes it to the next level. Paint a picture of what that looks like when they fully embrace their role.
Well, it's, to begin with, first of all, I've always felt very stuck and trapped and frustrated. I felt bound. I knew I have the potential to take this business to whatever, and I knew I want to get there, and I can just drive. But I always kept thinking that, my team may not be good enough or ready enough, or that there's always other people that are holding me back. But it was really me holding myself back. And when I started delegating, then all of a sudden I realized that I'm actually creating a lot more spare time for myself by letting other people do it, by giving them the opportunity to do it. And the downside of that is you end up getting even more bored, to be completely honest and frank about that, because there is spare time, and you then start looking for, how can I do this? How can I do that? And it's important then to acknowledge, to just leave that alone, do something else. And that's the best positive aspect that I've had out of that. Like recognizing that I'm a visionary. I need to be involved on the extremely high level parts of the business. I need to be there as support and mentor, but I'm not doing a 40, 50, 60 hour week in the business anymore. And if I were to do that, that's a bad thing for the business, right? Because you're probably just making things worse. So what do I do with all this time? And that's when you can now look at other activities that aren't related to the business. And for most people that are visionaries, they're probably ambitious in the sense that they may start an entirely new business. Most contractors will be like, I may as well do developments because I can now use my construction team to help me out there. Or they may do sort of community-related things like getting involved in, builders, networking groups and things like that, and helping other people like I have. Like coaching is giving me so much career satisfaction that I was starting to miss with the business, because I'm helping other business owners actually clarify their vision and help not just fix their companies, but get to that next level that they want to get to. And, that need for validation, I'm getting that every day when I'm having my calls with our clients and stuff like that. So it was important for me to recognize that, that need's always going to be there. Just because a business is successful doesn't mean that need's gone. I just need to now focus that somewhere else. That could be golf, that could be sailing, that could be traveling, it could be whatever else you want to do. But you have to get out of the business to be able to do that, and pursue other opportunities. And to be completely honest, the business, like I said, will perform a lot better without you being in the way. And you get to retain the credit that you started it. Doesn't mean you have to hang on and hold in there.
Yeah, good stuff. And it really is, what I find people want is they want to have impact, right? That's why they started the business. They want to have impact on their community. Maybe I've spoken with several people they would love to have more time to be able to work with veterans organizations, or to have impact on young people and get them into the skilled trades, or develop low-income housing. They want to have an impact on their community, their church, their charitable organization, maybe their kids. People want to have impact. And doing the things we've talked about, stepping into that visionary role, creates that space, that freedom, which gives you the opportunity to have that impact. But it really does require a leap of faith. What I'm hearing you say is you have to let go of your business. You have to get out of the business's way, take that leap of faith that when you do that, things will get better. And that is tough. But it happens over and over and over again. Any CEO of a business at a certain level, they've made that leap. And it's just part of that progression. Like we've said a couple of times, what got you from startup mode to where you're at is not going to get you from where you're at to truly being in that visionary role. And that requires a leap of faith. So,
and I should probably mention there that it's not, the leap of faith doesn't happen overnight, and it shouldn't happen overnight. You shouldn't, like, the way to do it isn't like, all right, I'm going to stop doing everything I've been doing. Good luck, guys. Sort it out. That's not how it works.
No.
You've got to actually, build the framework and then gradually move out.
Yes, absolutely. So when we talk about environments for success, what we found is one of the best ways to create an environment for success is to get into a community of people that are working on the same stuff as you are every single day. People who are moving and stepping into their true role as a visionary. And that's what we have here at Construction Leading Edge. We have this incredible program that Monish is part of, and it's where we work with you to help you systematize your business, just like we've done for dozens of other clients over the past year or so. We begin to work on you and your mindset along the way. We're going to help you embrace this visionary role along the way. And one of the most interesting things about it is that for most of our clients, not only does their business get radically different, not only does their bank account improve radically, but they become radically different as well. They have more confidence, they sleep better at night, they have more peace of mind, they're a better leader, their team is happier, they're showing up better for their family and their team. They're really having more impact, more of a positive impact that they want to. They are in a position to go after high-level talent, to go after bigger projects and work with the clients that they really want to work with. So if that's what you want, then we would invite you to book a call to speak to us. You can go to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, then book an appointment to speak to us. We'll get on the phone for about 45 minutes. You can tell us what's working in your business, what's not working in your business, and we'll put our heads together and we'll come up with a step-by-step game plan to get you where you want to go. We'll talk about the real root causes of some of your biggest and most painful problems, the obstacles that are holding you back. We'll talk about the crucial systems that will help you solve those root causes, but also what needs to change in your mindset to get where you want to go. And if you want our help to do that, then we can help, or we can talk about that too. If not, that's fine too. Either way, our goal is just to give you massive value. So go to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY. Book that appointment to speak to us. It's absolutely free, and it will likely be the best 45 minutes you've spent working on your business in a long time. I promise you that. All right, Monish, anything else that you'd like to share? Anything else that we didn't cover today?
Not quite. I think that's everything. And, I'll just back up and say, I think if you guys are visionaries and you feel stuck or trapped, do it. Make that call, jump on and let me help you get to where I am, because it's pretty rewarding for me as well to actually help people who have the potential to be extremely successful and see where that journey takes them.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for taking the time to be on here and sharing. Thanks for all the work you're doing. The results we're seeing from construction business owners that you've been working with have been stellar. So you've got some real raving fans out there, and I really appreciate that. So thanks, man. And folks, we will talk to you soon.